consequences. And it's important to know that we're putting the right leaders in power. We're really excited for this next piece too. We're going to hear from our Chief Technology Officer, Dale Gibler, who has worked really hard here at the party to implement a lot of security measures.
Yes.
Our whole staff has been rigorously trained, and one of the topics that Dale's going to get into in just a few moments is phishing and the different kinds of attacks that can take place over email. It's something that we've prepared for here at the party in order to protect our infrastructure, our staff, and our teammates, organizations around the state. Luisana, we've heard from Dale about this all the time.
Every day.
What do you think we're going to hear from Dale this afternoon with our activists and all our friends?
I think Dale has a lot to teach us. Every day we at the staff are hearing all these tips and how to stay up to date on these new ways that the hackers and people can do phishing. So please enjoy this panel. It's very, very important because we're getting closer to the elections and we're gonna see more attempts to try to do whatever to our system. So please use this training as a very, very important tool for your everyday work.
Everybody, welcome to Virtually Blue 2020. My name is Dale Gibler. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the Florida Democratic Party, and I'm proud and happy to stand in front of you today and offer a training that I think is going to be of value for everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about social engineering, and I'll be talking about how that ties into phishing and the different types of phishing campaigns that are out there. So we'll take a deep dive into how we can recognize social engineering and what types exist out there. Then we'll jump into looking at phishing, what type of phishing exists, what are some of the tools that are out there, some of the new tools that are out there. You're going to be surprised to learn about the efforts from outside entities, as well as some of the availability of resources on the dark web for phishing campaigns. So we'll learn about how those work. We'll also learn about how to identify them and then what we can do once we do get a phishing email, and if we've clicked on something and then we feel that we've given them access to accounts that we shouldn't. So we'll talk about how to handle that as well. So with that said, I'm happy to pass on this information. I'm just going to ask one special favor from you. Please pass this training on to somebody that you know and ask them to do the same thing, because we need to get this information out to the masses. We need to get them educated on how to handle and how to identify these types of vulnerabilities and attacks that exist out there. That's the only way that we're going to stay secure. So let's go ahead, jump into the training, and then feel free to ask me questions. You can reach out to security-alerts@floridadems.org, and I'll be happy to go ahead and address any questions. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you. So today, like I said, we're going to do a deep dive into social engineering and phishing. This particular lecture will help you to ready yourselves for any events that come up in regards to social engineering and phishing, which to me is the simplest form and probably the most effective form of hacking or having the bad actors get access to your data and your information. So let's look at what we're going to be talking about today. We got an introduction, which we're doing right now. What is social engineering techniques, what is phishing, talk about some real life cases and statistics, what are the differences, different types of phishing that exist, phishing techniques that exist as well. And then if you want to learn a little bit more about cybersecurity, you can actually go to www.fdpuniversity.org, and we have some very effective classes there that you can actually take. So I'm just saying on here, and I like to say it whenever I can, because people don't realize as hard as we can work, it can all be brought down within seconds. And so take time and effort to win an election and a few minutes of cyber incidents to actually destroy it. And that's not funny, but it's a fact. And I like to put that out there. We can do months and years of work towards something, but it can all be taken down within minutes. So With that said, what is social engineering? Some of you are familiar with this and have an understanding of it. I'm going to go ahead and explain this a little bit deeper. So, what is social engineering? The hacking of humans. It's exactly what it is. Not to say that there isn't a technical point to it, or we're not talking about utilization of current technologies to enhance that feature, but that's exactly what it is, the hacking of humans. Using things like knowledge of human behavior to elicit and define responses from individuals that are out there. And I mean, believe it or not, there's a lot of sociology and psychology that goes along with this. These hackers, these bad actors, they, especially at this level where they're trying to infiltrate and get information on campaigns or big organizations for either monetary reasons, or just to disruption. Do a lot of research into the social engineering aspect of it. I mean, they study human behavior, interactions, and social norms that may take place. They take account for those things. They find the weak points in human nature, and then they take advantage of that. So actions can be produced quite accurately just by these studies that they do, and the time and effort that they put into that. So action can be influenced quite easily based on their knowledge and experience. I mean, these individuals, although we think of them as hackers, guys sitting in a dark basement eating pizza, hacking away at a computer with code, there's a lot more thought that goes into this, and there's a lot more sophistication that goes into, especially at this level, trying to gain access or infiltrate an organization in any way. So we have to think about that. So let's think about some simple human behaviors. And psychologists and psychiatrists can break these down into two different levels or responses: the natural level of how we respond to things, and then of course the learned level. And the learned level meaning things that have we've been programmed for over time, like, for example, don't put your hand on fire because it's hot. Those types of things that we've actually learned over time. So the bad guys also realize this as well, and they take advantage of it. So they looked at learned habits or learned responses, and they'll say, okay, this individuals or this set of individuals, they're easiest to attack because they're used to using, let's say, thumb drives. They're used to using thumb drives, and so that's what they do. That's what they've learned to use. So let's use that as attack mode or weaponize that to our advantage. So they look at these types of responses and they figure out how they can actually work around it. So hackers will craft actual scenarios, for you to enter or into a solicited response, which they believe gives them the results they're looking for. And again, it's very well planned out. So we have to consider this when we look at these high level type of attacks or high level campaigns that come through. Now, I'm not talking about the everyday campaign where you get an email from Nigeria and they're telling you that their uncle passed away and they have $10 million, and if you go ahead and give them $5,000, they're going to give you $30 million. One of those things. That's a little different. We'll talk about that when we talk about phishing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the attacks that take place, the types of attacks. And we'll look at some real world examples, many of them in Florida right now, some of them that have been affecting the presidential campaign early on. So we'll discuss that because I think that's important. So there are 5 common types of attacks that exist out there. One, the dumpster diving, pretexting, phishing, which we're going to talk about in detail in just a little bit, physical entries, and enticements. There's a few more than this, but I felt like with the time that we have and what I needed to get across, these were the 5 that I think we need to touch on most relevantly at this point. So, dumpster diving, what does this mean? If not properly discarded, sensitive information be discovered by hackers in waste receptacles and dumpsters. This is a big one for a lot of the bad actors and a lot of people who are trying to gather information in a sense that they don't have to have an interaction with somebody. They don't have to put much effort into this besides just pulling out trash bags and rubbish bags and going through them. Probably the simplest form, but it is also one that does a really great return on investment. Many companies don't shred their documents. They may write a note, throw it into the rubbish can. They may do a post-it with a password, temporary password, or a password that was given to them, and they think nothing of it but crumpling it up and throwing it into the paper, into the bin. You can imagine how valuable this is for bad actors and for hackers. It's an instant into a system. So things like printed emails, expense reports with codes on them, whatever it may be, credit card receipts and numbers that exist on these documents that have not been shredded, network or application diagram devices, inventories with IP addresses on it, all valuable. All tools that, when put together with the rest of the puzzle, will allow these hackers to get into the system or gain access to the system partially. Notebooks, binders, other paperwork as well containing sensitive information. So again, simple, big return on investment, valuable information that they can possibly use to get into your network or your computer system or one of those things. So that's dumpster diving. The other one we're looking at is pretexting. So pretexting is pretty interesting. Pretexting fraudulent phone calls used to extract information, also used to set up or track attacks such as facilities, entry for phishing. So this is becoming big. A lot, and this is when we're talking about things like pretexting and phishing and things like that and smishing. We're talking about a higher level type of attack and a higher level type of actor or bad actor. So with pretexting, they'll do a fraudulent phone call. They'll ask you or pretend to be some entity. It may be something made up, or it may be something that they know that the organization deals with, and they'll try to get information or solicit information from you. I watched an interesting video that was put out by AT&T, and it talked about fraudulent calls like this or pretexting, where they would get calls and people would ask that they would be added on to an account. They would make it sound urgent. They would supply some of the information on that individual's account, enough that the operator or the tech support person would actually give them access to the account, and even add them on to the online account where they can make all changes they want. So this one, a little bit more effort, but the return on investment is also well worth it as well. So that's pre-texting. It's just fraudulent phone calls. Let's go forward. Phishing, we'll talk a little bit about that. So I don't want to give a description at this point. We're going to go into some detail about that. But again, this is one of the common type of attack modalities that they use. We also have physical entries, and we don't think about this a whole lot. Also known, AKA, as piggybacking. Hackers' methods of entering a facility with either a group of employees, maybe like a cleaning crew or maintenance crew. They go in with the idea of grabbing or gathering information. They may watch somebody put a code in, memorize that code or write it down. Once they do get in, they walk in behind that person. They may look at things like entry codes within. They may look for like post-its all over the place with passwords. They may look at IP addresses that are perhaps posted on the wall for some reason, or Wi-Fi network names with the Wi-Fi password right under it, which is pretty typical when we talk about campaigns doing something like that. So I have to be very careful about that. They act like they also, one of the key things is they're really good at this, is they act like they belong. So they fit in pretty well. Usually nobody notices them unless it's a smaller office. But if you're walking into some place like, for example, Intel or one of these big places where they've got thousands of employees and the campus is huge, it's a little hard to pick somebody out who's just kind of wandered into there, especially when they're really good at sort of fitting in or acting like they actually belong to the organization. This one, a little bit higher cost, a lot of risk involved with this, because that person or that hacker is actually walking into a facility and there's the potential of getting caught, there's the potential of getting arrested, etc. So the return on investment a little bit smaller with this, but if they hit it off and they gather the information they want, they've hit a gold mine. So that would be for like physical entry with that. Let's hop back. And the other one I'm going to talk about is enticement. So with enticement, a folder with an enticing title, maybe a label left around on the ground, outside an employee's office, entrance with a USB thumb drive taped inside, things that entice people. And I'm going to share something with you because I did this exact same thing. I regularly test employees of FTP. One of the things I did a few months ago was we had some packages come in from different resources, political resources. And what I did was I took some thumb drives that we had and I placed I want to call it a pseudo code in there, a code that would pretend it was a virus and it took over the device that they plugged it into. But I opened the corner of the envelope, and this is a bigger package envelope, dropped that in like it belonged there, closed it, and then put the actual mail on the desk to the individuals. And so that's enticing. They'll open this up. It looks like it's coming from that individual. And then so they'll plug it in and they'll trust it completely. The other things I'll do is I'll take USB devices or other devices and just kind of lay them around and see who picks them up and who works with. So it's enticing them, USB, CDs, CDs, DVDs, things like that, although we don't use those very much anymore. Those are the things that kind of pique the curiosity of those individuals, and it takes advantage of of human nature of curiosity, and that's one of the vulnerabilities that's part of social engineering. So interesting stuff, very, very interesting stuff. Let's jump back, and I'm going to go ahead and go one forward because now that we've learned about social engineering, we're kind of set it up for this point of phishing, because phishing is the actual tool that they're going to use, that they want you to bite onto the hook, and they're going to get some great bait to do that. And sometimes they get that great bait through social engineering. Many times they may get your company or organization's listserv or email list by doing social engineering and finding things out. Other ways that they can do it, I'm going to throw some things out here as well, is they may look at things like go to your website. Be very, very careful about what's on your company website or even your website. If you're listing out your employees and you have phone numbers and you have email addresses and all of these things and full names or whatever it may be, and even an image of them, that is another gold mine for bad actors. If I can go there, if I can find out a name, I can get an email address and whatever else I can from there. The rest of it is pretty simple. I can actually craft a very specific phishing or spear phishing email and capture and bait it very, very well, so I can make sure I get bites by other employees. So that's things that we need to be careful about, and I'll try to mention some of these things as we go along. But phishing, more than 90% of successful hacks and data breaches start with phishing scams. So phishing is a threat to every organization, every campaign, globally across the world. So get the information you need, and that's what you're doing right now by attending this. But take it upon yourself too to do some extra reading, look up some studies, get yourself an arsenal of defense, and you can prevent these attacks that take place when we talk about phishing. So what is phishing? Phishing is the process of attempting and acquiring sensitive information such as usernames, passwords, credit card information, and masquerading as a trustworthy entity, such as a bank, such as a financial institution, such as, for example, an organization such as Florida Democratic Party, and getting the trust and building something that's viable and worth using in a phishing campaign of that sort. So usually emails claiming to be from a popular social website, stuff like that, like I said, banks, auction sites, or even better than that, an IT administrator, or even a service that you use. For example, Google. If you're using Google Enterprise or Google Business, That's been used fairly widely. Just in late, there has been a attempt to use Microsoft's Sway to go ahead and build mock sites or websites because it's an easy tool to work with as a landing page that looks just like, for example, Amazon, or looks just like Netflix or one of those things, and trick you with billing or billing from Google or whatever it may be. So they're very, very sophisticated. They lure you in. Most of that is unsuspecting to the public, and it's of concern. So that's what phishing is, and we're going to take a little bit of a deeper look into phishing along with that. But I do want to talk about some cases that are out there, because I always like talking about this because we need to put something real in there, so we as users and potential victims of phishing realize that these things actually do happen, and they have consequences for us when it does happen to us. So this is a current case. This is Stanley Huntley. If you don't know who he is, he's the head of Google Threats Analysis Group. They're a very good group. They keep on top of things. They have an excellent blog. He has an excellent Twitter account that he's always releasing good information on. But he just posted this a while back. And it says, recently tagged saw China APT group targeting Biden campaign staff, and Iran APT targeting Trump campaign staff with phishing. And no signs of compromise have been taking place. And as of this date, there has been no compromise discovered. It's just been discovered that they've been kind of lurking around. They've been looking at ways to get somebody to bite into the hook, and they haven't been very successful at that. So Google really did confirm on during that time that the foreign adversaries are still at it. They're still working hard, and we're looking. This is going to be more progressive as we get closer to the elections in 2020. So we're going to see more sophisticated attacks. We're going to see more rogue countries being trying to do something like this and get into systems. If we haven't learned from 2016, hopefully we did. We need to be ahead of this game. I know we are at the state party level, and I'm very confident that we are at the national, the Democratic Party national. I'm sure we are. The other thing is the Chinese-backed hackers were observed targeting specific presidential lower level type of staffing, and that's usually where they'll start. They'll try to see if they can go ahead and get a bite down there. If they get a bite from one of the lower level staffing, then they'll go ahead and move up the chain somehow. So it's a very sophisticated thing. The Biden campaign knows they were aware of this. They said that they were working on it. They were also building defenses against it as well, and a phishing campaign plan that would prevent something like this in the future. And I'm very confident that they are working on this very closely. On the other hand, when we talk about the current administration, the Iranian-backed hackers were trying to target Trump's campaign staff. And again, it wasn't proven that they actually infiltrated and were successful or not. So that's to be seen. Both were targeted with phishing attacks, according to Shane Huntley, the head of the Google Analysis Group. And they were very simple to very sophisticated types of attacks that were taking place. In a statement, the Biden campaign again said that Google had notified them early enough of the attempts and intrusions that they were able to work effectively on that. So interesting real life event that kind of puts this stuff into perspective with this. The other one, and it even brings us closer to home, is the 7 Florida municipalities that have fallen prey to cybersecurity attacks since last year. So there are some current ones in 2020 as well. I couldn't find a whole lot of information on them. They were much smaller than what events that happened at this point. But there's a bunch of them out there. Collier County became victim of phishing scam late last year, the year before. These bad guys netted foreign attackers about $184,000 in taxpayers' money, according to the independent investigators. Counties found in probably late December of 2018, They were targeted of a threat. They were being looked at, or this case was being looked at by the Federal Bureau of Investigations to identify any business emails compromised, county and clerk courts officials that have been compromised. This was a big thing. And again, this was not, if we looked at this in detail, this was not a very sophisticated phishing attack. It was pretty broad spectrum. They blanket sent information out. They didn't target anybody. They just ended up having, they baited it very well. They just happened to have a lot of bites and they were able to take care of that. So that's just one that's on the list. There's another one that was of concern, which is in Tallahassee. So in April of 2019, almost $500,000 was diverted out of the city of Tallahassee employee payroll after a suspected foreign cyber attacker kind of hit the system very hard. The out-of-state third-party vendor that kind of took care of things for the city's payroll services was hacked, and that's kind of where that started. And as a result, the direct deposit paychecks were redirected to another account. So employees throughout the city, workforce was affected tremendously from this. So this is a big one as well. This one, a little bit more sophisticated, but they were smart. They were extremely smart. They couldn't penetrate Tallahassee's system. And so the way they looked at this was, let's find out, what vendors they have. Let's find the vulnerabilities of these vendors. And that's the way we're going to approach this attack. So this is a very sophisticated attack and very well thought and planned out. So as a business or a state party, whatever you're in, if you're dealing with vendors, third-party vendors, you always want to vet them very well. The other day, we were talking to vendors, new vendors, to do a service for us. And one of the first things I asked them for was as much security information they could give me for their organization. And so state by state, that's a little different. But I was able to get the information as long as that I feel they're safe, they're active in cybersecurity and security, and they're providing me enough information. That would be the only way I would use that vendor and feel comfortable using that vendor. So realize it may not just be your organization, it may actually be the vendors that you're using that are the weakest chain in your cybersecurity program. The other one is the city of Naples. City of Naples said the August cyber attack that resulted in a loss of $700,000 was an extremely highly sophisticated spear phishing strategy that went after higher level employees within the city itself, the city of Naples. So the funds were paid to a fake bank account, and the attackers provided while posing as representatives from a construction firm that was doing infrastructure work within the city of Naples. So again, they're using fake information, since I can't think of a better word, and misinformation, misguided information, and trickery to be able to gather money from the city in this way. That was a successful event. The city of Naples was out of $700,000. Hopefully they had cybersecurity insurance. And I'd like to mention that right now. I don't recommend any one company, but if you have an organization and your data is important and your data makes you liable, you want to have cybersecurity insurance. And it doesn't matter who it is, as long as it's a good policy and you read through your policy well. You want to make sure you do that. So the last one we're going to be talking about is Key Biscayne. So it was struck by a malware in the town of Key Biscayne. When officials identified the data security event that took place, they were overwhelmed with the amount of damage it had already done. Like attacks on other municipal systems, this particular virus or ransomware infected emails, and it came through as an attachment. It looked very legit. This was what I would deem as a sophisticated email attack, and it was very successful. Some of these counties and within these events decided to pay the ransom that was requested by the bad actors. One of the worst things you ever want to do is you want to pay these guys for these types of attacks. It sets a precedence for other hackers to do the same thing because they know that there's some value to it in the end. And almost all these cases, and a large amount of these ransomware cases, when the ransomware is paid, they never release the information. They never unlock or encrypt the data or the systems that they locked out. So, and in the age of, for example, I'm going to throw a few more things there in here, of IoTs, wearables, etc., where we have, for example, hotels that have digital access to your rooms using your phone and using smart technology. These things throw another factor into cybersecurity and so forth. There was a hotel in the Netherlands that adopted this new technology. They got hacked via plant of within an email that was clicked on that took over their systems, locked all their rooms of their guests as they exited, and didn't allow the guests back in. They didn't have a backup plan. They had nothing to ensure that they could bypass this. They paid the ransomware. The rooms were never opened. So it almost never pays to pay, to be honest with you. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention as far as real world type of things that are going on with phishing and with hackers. So statistics a little bit. So I want to talk about that. 95% of all attacks on enterprise networks are the result of successful spear phishing. 95%. Simple tool. Looking at human nature, learned habits as well. Very smart and a very successful way to work on and use this type of technology. So, real life statistics. Let's talk about the statistics a little bit. 95% of malware is delivered via email. Phishing attacks account for about 80% of reported security incidents. 17,000 is an average is lost every minute due to phishing attacks. 60% of breaches involve vulnerabilities for which a simple patch could have been put in place. Not only a simple patch, but a simple update of your operating systems, any software that exists, any of that stuff. And that's why it's so important for us to make sure that we update our software. And especially since we're working from home right now, your routers, your switches, they're all run by software. You got to make sure that those things are updated to the most current version. 52% of breaches involve phishing. 64% of organizations have experienced a phishing attack since the past year, and 62% of phishing attacks are now targeted at remote workers. And I want to throw one more thing in here. It takes an average of 196 days for any organization to realize that they've been compromised. At that point in time, they've already they've gotten what they needed to get. They've either used you as a tunnel to get into another system, or they've completely taken over your system. One of those things. So that's a lot of time, and that's a spooky statistics at this point. So some statistics running your way. Let's talk about the forms of phishing. And you've heard these a million times, but they're always worth running through again. So forms of phishing. So let's look at this one. It says deceptive phishing. This is the most common type of phishing that exists out there. Usually broad spectrum. They're not targeting one type of person. Most common type. Email from somewhat of a recognized sender. Steals information by imitating a legitimate provider, some type of legitimate provider. Users should inspect the following. Look at what the URL looks like. Sometimes they may mask the URL, but if you take your mouse cursor and hover over it, you'll be able to see the true URL under there. Check for legitimate redirection. Look out for the following: generic salutations, dear sir, dear ma'am. Grammar, lots of grammar mistakes, lots of spelling errors and so forth in these emails. And a great example again is, hey, somebody sent you an email, you won the sweepstakes, click on here or call this number, whatever it may be. This is very low level types of things that exist. So let me pull this up so you can see an example. Again, generic introduction, generic salutation, unprofessional manner in presenting themselves, URL is usually just either posted like this, or they may put it as a link within a text. But again, if you hover over that, you'll be able to see what that URL is. Going further down, statement of urgency, and they may also put that statement of urgency in the subject line. So these are all tall tale signs that, you know what, this is a phishing expedition. Although we're looking at things like, hey, it looks like a legitimate icon or image. This one, for example, Visa. But look at the whole picture of it. And especially of these, they like to hit people up with these things during the busiest time of the year, where everybody is getting a lot of correspondences or emails. They're going through things quickly. They're not really paying attention. This is the opportune time to do a phishing expedition. It really is. And this is also an opportune time for me to go ahead and test people with phishing emails. So just don't tell my staff that. That's the only thing. Okay, cool. Let's jump on to the next one. Spear phishing. Spear phishing is a lot more focused on who they're going to target, most commonly on social media sites, or they may use information off social media sites, email from a very recognized sender. It may be, for example, your boss or the head of the organization, whatever it may be. Uses personalized information. They may know by going to your social media that you're at your son's, for example, soccer game or daughter's soccer game over the weekend. And they may include that in there and say, hey, Joe, wow, it was great to see that you had time to spend with Dorothy or Dan this weekend at the soccer game. So it gets a little bit more specific, and they target you. So employee security awareness training takes care of this. Be very aware, do training if you have an organization. Do reading on your own, be very aware, limit sharing sensitive personal information online, keep it to a minimum, or lock down your social media. On FDP University, I have a course in there that talks about locking down your social media. So invest in automated solutions to analyze emails, third-party vendors that monitor these things. If you're using a service like Google Enterprise, Google Business, there's some tools in there you can use as well. Okay. So this kind of shows you what the spear phishing looks like. Looks like it's from Google Autobot, but if you look at the email, it's not from Google Autobot. And then you can look at the body of it and the link itself. The link doesn't look quite right. So these are, again, very showing in that it is again, a spear phishing campaign that's coming through your organization. Okay? And you can hover over, for example, some of these links just to see if they're legitimate or not. So phishing tackle box. There's something called vishing. I love to do this test on my staff. Vishing is contact target by phone, and I use this in a combination of vishing, smishing, and also phishing. And that's what smart hackers do. They'll not just sometimes use one modality. They'll use different techniques and tools to try to get to. And the higher the prize at the end, the more they'll put into this to get information or get what they're looking for or hit their target. So vishing, again, contact by phone, mimics known entities to steal sensitive data and funds. There's tools out there that you can actually spoof phone numbers and text them. You can spoof phone numbers and call as if it was from that person's phone call. And if, again, you ask my staff, I do this on a regular basis to hire targets where I'll use, for example, maybe senior staff number to call a staffer, and they'll think that it's coming through from them. And as soon as they pick up the phone, I'll hang it up like there was a problem. I may make some rustling noise to that. And then what I'll do is I'll text them from that same number saying, hey, check your email. I need some information for the banking card because I'm trying to buy something and I'm traveling this week. Please check your email. And then I'll send a phishing email, a spear phishing email with them. And I'll go, hey, this is Dale, Mike. My credit card I left at home. I'm traveling to New York. Right now I'm sitting down and I need to pay for dinner. I don't have and I'm with important clients. I don't have the means to pay for it right now. Can you send me the credit card information quickly? This is urgent. and they'll never know. And I've done this before for other companies as well, doing testing, and they'll right away give you the information. By the way, the spoof card is a tool that you can download online. You can use it online. It's web-based. There's also an open source one that you could use, and I forget what the name of that one is. But just for a few dollars, I can mimic people's emails. I mean, not emails, their phone numbers, and text out from another app that mimics their number in the text. So very sophisticated. Smishing, just kind of talked about this. So smishing, phishing isn't the only way to go with this, but there's also phishing, contact target by SMS texting. And this is why it is so important to adopt a secure messaging system. For example, like Signal. Some people like WhatsApp. Some people like to use Wicker. One of those things. Adopt something and use it. Make sure the encryption is good. I do not recommend using your regular SMS. It's the worst way to go if you're going to communicate in a campaign or you're going to communicate sensitive information. So this is available too. You want to be very careful. It's another way to kind of target people. If you go back to what I just talked about a few minutes ago, I sort of explained how it's used. I kind of use it in a conjunction of, smishing, phishing, and then, phishing type of approach to things. So be very, very aware of this. So what are the phishing techniques and tools that exist? There's probably more out there, but these are the ones that I thought that it was probably interesting or good for you to know about. There are various phishing techniques that attackers use or the bad guys use. And embedding things like links in an email that redirect employees to an unsecured site or website that requests sensitive information. I do a phishing test where I do exactly this. I make it look official. They click on it. They go to a site that this looks exactly like the site that they would normally go to do this. Just by downloading and re-uploading the site onto a different platform. Installation of Trojans via malicious email attachments. This is another one to exploit loopholes in the network security and within the infrastructure itself. Spoofing the sender's address in an email appears to be reputable. This is another big one that people use. That's very easy to do, much easier than you think it would be. Attempting to obtain company information over the phone, impersonating somebody else. I do a lecture on fake news, misinformation, and disinformation, and part of that I talk about deep fakes, and I talk about audio deep fakes or voice deep fakes. And there is a case with a Chicago bank and a European bank. And somebody had called the European bank using deep fake voice. And if you don't know anything about deep fake, you can actually take snippets of somebody's voice and then you can train your voice through this modulation to sound exactly like that person. So what he did was he went ahead and called the bank. They knew each other, talked about his children, then asked them to transfer over $250,000 into a bank account. They did. The only reason this individual got caught or ended up on the radar is because they got greedy and they called back a second time to ask for another $250,000 to be transferred. They got suspicious at that point. They canceled the original transfer, and then they reported it to the FBI and local authorities. So this stuff is real. I mean, very, very real. I mean, besides deepfakes being voice, you can also do deepfakes with videos. And you've seen, again, online, there's many of them are out there. They're going to be used widely during the political season to make people sound and say things that they didn't say or look the way that they shouldn't look, and etc. It's very easy technology. It's all free software to do this. And I'm going to give you one example so you can kind of know what I'm talking about. Nancy Pelosi was doing a presentation in front of the press to make her sound like she was drunk, intoxicated. They actually went down and they did a very simple form of this. They actually slowed down the audio slightly enough to make her sound like she was intoxicated. So this is a big thing. We're going to see a lot of this happening coming up to 2020. So tools for and resources that are out there. The two things I wanted to talk about, the two major ones that are on my mind right now as far as events go, and these are big ones, is recently Microsoft Sway has been using, not Microsoft, but the bad guys have been using Microsoft Sway to mimic sites to lure people to and gather information. The other big one is the dark web, or what people mistakenly call the deep web. The dark web is part of the deep web. And what's happening right now are hackers, high-level hackers, are selling toolkits for phishing and hacking, and also running classes and tutorials on the deep dark web on how to interrupt campaigns, how to hack, and also how to effectively run a phishing campaign for financial gain or whatever it may be. So typically a kit averages about between, that's backwards, $50 to $450, right around there. So it's very affordable, it's easy to access, and those things are out there. These are the two I really wanted to make people aware about that's happening right now. So how to prevent phishing? Two sides to this, okay? You really have to think about this. User side, when I think about being an organization, teach my employees to be vigilant. As an individual, you have the responsibility yourself to be vigilant in your approach to this. Never trust anything. Have a healthy dose of paranoia when it comes to cybersecurity. Think before you click. Always take a slight breath. Doesn't look right. Hover over that link. Make sure it's real. Always report suspicious email to proper authorities or within your organization. Check on the source. Example, if I had somebody call me and said, I got an email from so-and-so and it seems very suspicious because their email address is different and the link is really, really weird. So I told them, thank you for reporting that. You know this person? Yes, we do. Okay, did you pick up the phone and call them? No, we didn't. So that's usually the first thing I recommend. Don't respond back to the email, hey, Chuck, is this really you? Or one of those things. What you want to do is, if you know this person, pick up the phone. If you have their phone number, give them a call. If they're in the same office, same building as you, walk over to them and ask them, did you send this email out? And I've seen that. I've seen emails come through from somebody who's down the hall from me, and then I'll walk over and ask them and say, hey, did you send this email? No, I didn't. So that's on the simplest type of level. Lock down and secure your social media. I cannot push how important this is. If you're going to get hacked, it's going to be part of it. It's going to be social engineering. Part of it's going to look at your social media and it's going to gather information. They're going to call you, or they're going to fish you with some legitimate looking information. So lock it down. I also have instructions on fdpuniversity.org that will show you how to do that. On the organizational side, educate. Test. These are important things. Make sure that your staff, your employees are ready and that they take cybersecurity serious. You want to build a culture of cybersecurity. You don't want to make it stressful for people. And like I tell people, if you've clicked on something, I'd rather have you let me know that you clicked on it than feel that if you're going to get into trouble for it, because you're not. Because I'd rather have you tell me than 190 something days later find out that we got infiltrated, that we got breached. Okay, so that's important. Provide the necessary tools for everybody. Remove any revealing information from the company's website. Ask your employees to remove it from their social media, especially if they got listed down, hey, I work at so-and-so. And hey, we got a new location this week. We're moving to so-and-so building. And the new internet's in from this particular vendor, So we have to be very careful about those things. So the dark side, the dark web. This is the spooky stuff. This is stuff of mysteries. So I want to talk about this just a little bit because I think it's going to have a big play in what goes on for the 2020 elections. There's already a lot of things going on, a lot of chatter on there that I can see when I'm in there. So I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. So What is the dark web? The dark web, not to be confused with the dark net and so forth. This is actually a layer within that. It's actually part of the internet, to be honest with you. It's part of the deep web, and this is where it's no longer indexed for search engines. You need special software to get into it. You need a special browser to get into it, and all of the deep techies are there. The hackers, people are selling illegal items. All of these things do exist there. You can order drugs from Russia. You can do almost about anything that you think you wanted to do in there. Well, it's almost like a candy store for hackers or wannabe hackers that are out there. But one of the spooky things is now there are phishing kits being sold and they're very sophisticated, very simple to very sophisticated. And they have a different components of it. So let's look at it. I'm going to give you the anatomy of a phishing kit. So the legitimate website is cloned. So they'll actually clone a site. The login page can be changed to point to any credentialed stealing scripts that they have. It can be modified, the files, they can be zipped. They can make a phishing kit from that, and then they'll go ahead and sell that. So number 4, the phishing kit is uploaded. This is after they purchase it to the hacking site, and files are unzipped on it, and it looks so legitimate. It's simple to do. Emails are sent to these links pointing to the new spoof's website, and that's where they collect their information from. Because can you imagine this, where if we were to do something like voting online or something of that, somebody had stolen that page, cloned it, and had people go there, or even nothing would be worse than that, but even moreover, if you're a campaign and they clone your donation site and they're collecting money from your donors. And that's not unheard of. So these are deep and concerning types of things that do take place. So I'm going to stop it here. I know you can't ask me any questions because we're doing this virtually and so forth. But if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Security-alert at Florida